It is exactly 7:02 p.m. Central Standard Time, Tuesday, November the 2nd, 2021. Welcome to week 5, week 5. And this is the final lecture in this course. As you should be aware that we don't have a week 6 lecture in this course. And therefore, for the last part of this lecture, I will discuss some of the items in week 6 and remind you that the course ends exactly 1 week from today at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, or the 9th. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's go to the calendar. As you can see, this is where we are today. The initial post due tonight, and then live lecture, and then finally your reply post the 6th, live classroom lecture phrase due the 7th, quiz, which you know you can take 3 times. Be aware of the fact that each time you take it, you don't lower your grade, but the one that is the highest of the 3 is what counts. And if you don't do too well the first time, that means you probably need to do a little bit more studying, because you can't take notes. You're not supposed to. And then, so the last one on the 7th. And then week 5's written assignment that we'll talk about tonight. Then you see that the course ends on the 9th. Initial post to be due on the 9th, as well as your discussion posts, both of them, as well as your quiz, okay, for week 6 that works the same way. Okay, back to the month. Okay, let's go back to the announcements. So let's look at the announcement for week 5, challenges within the field of corrections. Chapter 7, pages 189 to 193, 13, 15, and 16 of the text, and deal with the activities challenges in corrections, TPC review, and finally vocabulary review. And then discussion assignment, again, that is due tonight, sensible revocation. And then your reply post, of course, is due Saturday. Finally, the written assignment and quiz are due on Sunday. Written assignment, release planning. And then you remember my motto, adversity springboard to success. I do want to say this, that one of the things that have hurt some students is not providing credible sources. Credible sources, I've already described it before, but I'll say it one last time, is citations in the body of the assignment and a page that covers the references. that should match the citations in the body. So it's very important that you do that, not just an occasional one, because I have found situations where people have thrown in a citation and it didn't match, and that was problematic, and points were lost. Right, so that's the week 5 announcement. So this out. So let's get into the module. Challenges within the field of corrections. Specifically, let's look at the written assignment first. Okay, so you have a scenario, and what you're going to end up doing is assess is the first state you've been asked to assess is a determinate sentencing state. You know how that works. We've discussed that already. And then it gives some further information in the second paragraph. And you're going to deal with that as well. TPC, which is transition from prison to community model, which is actually what takes place with prisoners. They go into prison and they're going to come out in most cases. And you're going to talk about the concepts of TPC and lack of understanding as to how to implement TPC. So you're going to create a proposal that includes identifying 2 recommendations for this state, including specific examples for each recommendation, why you think the recommendations will be the most impactful to the state. Explain how each recommendation is aligned with research, including RNR, TPC, and other principles. And it says what I said earlier, provide evidence from credible sources. Now we'll explain that to you. Should be double space and be submitted in the form of a Word document. Should be a cover page as well. And I will run your papers through Grammarly all the time. Okay. Let's take a look at the rubric. As usual, I refer to which column. Anybody remember what column that we're using here? What column do I focus on and ask you to focus on? You can type in chat, I'll see it. Anybody remember? That's right. I want you to be in that mode. I'm trying to keep you in that mode, whether it's in this class or any other class. You know, the B is proficiency, and then the C is competence, and then emerging is D and F. So you don't want to be in that. And you see how it happens. If you don't have credible sources, you end up in the last column. So dealing with the recommendations first, the first part, exemplary explanation of why the 2 identified recommendations that you're required to provide would be the most impactful, with examples, thorough examples. Alignment, thorough alignment of the 2 recommendations made to RNR, TPC, and other identified principles with credible sources, spelling, and grammar. Okay, so those are the things that you need to do. Okay. Any questions about the written assignment? Any questions about the written assignment? Okay, not yet. Okay, anybody else? Questions? Remember, this is a chance to get a clear understanding while I can give you contemporaneously with the lecture, and also you might help somebody else. Anything? Okay, I see there's none. Okay. Okay, not at the moment. Both of you kind of provided the same answer, different words. But, be aware that, I tell students all the time, don't wait until Sunday to have those questions. It's not going to help you much. Okay, you want to try to begin before that. Okay, the discussion assignment. And so you got two scenarios. Offenders face barriers when they are released from prison, and many of them don't do well while they're on parole and violate for technical reasons and create new offenses. Technical violations is they violate the terms of their current parole. New offenses, they commit other crimes while still on parole. Either way, the rates are high. So what is sensible revocation? In other words, at what point should the individual be returned to prison, if any? And so you're going to deal with each of these two scenarios. All right. So in your initial post, select one of the scenarios. One, not two, but one of the scenarios, and explain what constitutes a technical violation versus a new offense. I kind of tipped that to you a few minutes ago. Include examples of both technical and new offense violations, and detail the reasons why the parolee selected should or should not have their sentence revoked, which means they would be returned to prison to serve the rest of their time out. Include examples from the scenario to support your reasons, whichever one you pick. Describe your thoughts as to what sensible revocation means. Okay. Any questions about the discussion post? Okay. And then, of course, you know how the quiz works. We've already talked about that. Your live recording. Okay. So we're going to talk about these two topics here. Then we deal with the knowledge check, and then we're going to go into the next chapter. So, as you are aware, individuals who are in correction face many challenges. Remember how they ended up getting there in the first place. Either they pled guilty or were found guilty of a violation of a crime that would have been a felony, because that's how you end up going to prison as opposed to jail. And so anyway, the key thing that it says is correctional challenges can include jail and prison administration. That's for misdemeanors. The release process for prison, again, that's for felonies. And barriers that offenders face, what what is it that caused them not to be successful, and what role do the probation officer play in the course of jail, or the parole officer in the event that you're dealing with prison. So, and the what the individuals do or don't do is what causes this to work. So people, it says public safety is important, and that is that the individual is not committing any more crimes. So that means that whatever they picked up in prison caused them to understand, whether it was a training they received or whatever it was, that put them from 12 o'clock down to 6. And you all should know what that is by now, because I've talked about that enough. So when they're at 6 o'clock, that's a good thing. And it's as it says here, it's a win-win for the community. All right. So it is cheaper to educate than to incarcerate. It's very expensive to incarcerate people. And then as it talks about recidivism being included, where you have the same names coming out, going in, it's like a revolving door, or as I like to put it, as a wheel, like a gerbil is on. They just go on, they can't get off. And so it just keeps going on, and it costs money. Okay. So public safety is one of the key factors. And then success of the individual, the programs that they have been exposed to provide an understanding of what they need to do to become productive citizens. And other, as I said, the ways you have technical violations, that is what is indicated at the time of parole, what conditions that the parole board sets out that a person must maintain in order to satisfy the requirements of parole, which is designed for public safety and is designed to help that person to make it through successful release from parole. So we have people who commit violations, new violations, new offenses while out, and they do what we call in the business is catch a case. Catch a case. We use two terms. We says when a person's on parole or probation, they're on paper. And what that really means is that they have guidelines they have to follow. And if they do something that is not on that sheet, such as violate the law, then that is a new offense violation. And new offense violations pretty much is almost a ticket back to prison. Sometimes, because if you're dealing with it from the vernacular, that people who are hooked on drugs and alcohol, who have been trying to participate in the requirements of their technical release and catch a case, because they will fall down depending on the seriousness of the offense, may not go back to penitentiary. Of course, as you know, if it's very serious, they're going to end up going back. Okay. So we want to deal with what is sensible revocation, what threatens the public safety and requires a return to prison, as it says here. And so it delays successful integration by those individuals. Okay. So the key thing is that you be aware that they have temptations, who they hang with, who they spend time with. Individuals who, remember, many of these individuals are um, exceptionally gullible and can be easily talked into, oh, you got caught that time, but you're not going to get caught this time. And as a result, um, will go for the bait. It's almost like, as I try to explain to my clients over and over and over, that, and I use the illustration of the fish. I says, put yourself in the position of a fish and you're in the water and you see suspended in the air, not laying on the ground, suspended in the air, a worm. And that worm might be moving because it's still kind of alive. Or the bottom line is that it's a worm, just suspended in the air. Well, there has to be something that's holding that worm there. And if you do go for that worm, then you get caught by what's under the worm. That's the hook. Well, that's simply a trap that's laid out. Well, that's the same thing that happens to individuals. I don't know if I talked about it in this class, but I've talked about it in another class about a client of mine who was walking down an area where homeless people hang out, people who are beggars, and he one evening walked down the street and he saw what he appeared to be a drunken beggar that was out of it with the hat in front of them, and it had a nice amount of cash in it. And there was a 20 that was on top and sticking out. So he looks around, he don't see nobody. He actually goes past it, slows down, nothing happened. Then he yields to the temptation of reaching for that 20. As soon as he reached for that 20, the guy announced his office, pulled out his weapon. Police came from all directions. He was caught on tape and recorded, and there he caught the case. I don't remember whether he was on paper or not, whether he was on parole or probation. But the bottom line was, what I'm saying is that the temptation sometimes is laid out so um, clear that remember, if it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. Okay, so you have to be very, very, very careful. Um, I had a person to uh, come up to me and offer to sell me some of their link. I was in Walmart, and they were going to give it to me at a discount, and I was giving money, but they would use the card to pay it. So I told them, no, I don't participate in that. In fact, that I'm a retired police officer. All they heard was police officer, and the guy took off running. Well, I couldn't chase him. I'm too old to be chasing people, and it wasn't a sting. But here's my whole point. I would risk my whole career and life and my freedom for that one little buck or thing. Y'all kind of get where I'm coming from? Do you feel where I am here in terms of the challenges that these individuals face? Yeah. And then the last thing I'm going to say is that we who have to make the call, parole officers, and taking it to the board, then the board says, you know, this person clearly has not learned their lesson, or they might need more assistance. and the assistance might require taking them off of the streets, those kind of things. That's why you have halfway houses that are utilized where individuals spend the time, and that some are released on parole to be at home and have to be home by certain hours and pretty much under house arrest, those kinds of things. But it's a combination of protecting the public and helping that offender to become successful. Okay, so you think about that as you should be making notes about challenges that that you're going to face there as well. So I like this one, Introduction to Corrections, in week 5. I teased them when they gave me that, but they said this was just basically a test. And I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but I'm going to show you what you can do in terms of being able to. So see what the National Institute of Corrections provides in terms of, let's see if there's anything beneficial or helpful here for you here. Uh, let's see. These are different webinars and projects. They have some materials in here that relate to individuals who are LGBT. Um, okay. They have different divisions that talk about projects and programs and stuff like that. So it's a minimal amount of help to my students and some of the things. But the key thing is that they explain certain projects and by divisions, training and stuff like that. So anyway, that's what that is. Then you deal with further into it, the challenges in corrections. So now we get into really the essence of where you find the stuff that can help you, starting with TPC review, which has to do with transition from prison to community. We've already talked about that quite a bit. And it talks about what the NIC is all about and what they do. And so the key thing is that we must have something that reduces recidivism. That's the key thing. Excuse me. Didn't want to do that in your ears again. Whew. Something happened. But anyway, to reduce recidivism. And then the desire for individuals to find people that are victims. You know, like someone that looks like, oh, they are easy touch, like that drunken person might find a senior citizen, or you might find a young person that's gullible. And so anyway, these are things that um, can happen. Um, we want to basically uh, get these individuals to 6 o'clock, where they are new um, uh, individuals, where they have new lives, new directions that they plan on going to, where they are able to even help individuals who have previously been at 12 o'clock or 3 o'clock to get to 6 o'clock. and remind them that don't go to 9, because then you're halfway back to where you started. And once you get there again, you're real smart because you think you really know something. I once heard somebody say a sucker is born every day, and all that really means is that there's always some new individuals out there that you can test out your theories of thinking you can get away with something. However, once again, uh, the definition of a criminal is a person who got caught committing a crime. They didn't get caught, they weren't criminals. Now, the definition of a prisoner or a recidivist is someone who has been caught before and trying to keep them from the mindset of thinking that they got to keep going in that same direction. So what we think of in terms of ideas to transition individuals from the prison that they were led to by their violation of the law to a productive citizen um, in the community. That's that's the whole thing in a nutshell. It's really not that. And then there are programs that are utilized to help individuals in those kinds of things, such as second chance jobs, help individuals get housing, drug treatment, alcohol treatment. Um, there's community organizations, faith-based organizations like churches, and things of that nature to help individuals to um, redirect their minds and produce a more positive um, life for them. And it happens day by day. It's not a easy thing. It's like I try to explain to somebody, it's harder than trying to lose pounds and weight, because you have temptations that come along that will mess with you. Stuff like this. You know what I'm talking about, guys. Yeah, I'm definitely going to not eat that junk, and then you turn on TV. What do you see? Commercials for food. Okay. Nothing worse than when you're in a fast is to turn on TV and then you see a juicy steak, or if you're a vegan, you see a nice salad or something. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Well, that's the same thing that we're talking about here that these individuals are dealing with. So, all right. So, Professor Wright, don't do that. You're making me hungry. Okay. All right. So, let's get to the next topic. So, what are some of the components? And that's what I started talking about a few minutes ago, of transition from prison to the community. And so let's look at the assessment. So dealing with assessment or evaluation, you deal with the risk principle, um, determine who to target, what those individuals need. And it talks about the higher the risk, the higher the level of service or intervention, treatment, and so forth needed. So um, there are some people who you can give them a little bit of direction and they'll go. But then there are some that need more up close and personal, and those kinds of things. Such as, I think it's pretty clear to most of us that individuals who are drug users uh, and or alcohol users and or have mental health issues uh, need a lot more intervention and treatment than a person who will commit crimes because of who they hang around with alone. Um, and so you need not just help those individuals, but you need to rehab those individuals, like an old house, old building. You need to gut it. and get them started. And as I've said before, when do you start that? You start that when they first come in, and your role as corrections people um, in all areas is to begin to help those individuals with that. So um, then determine what to target, and you got 4 areas of risk: antisocial behavior that the individual had, antisocial personality patterns, antisocial attitudes, their values and beliefs that they have been taught throughout, even going back from childhood, and who they associate themselves with. Those are the big risk areas that are going to be involved with when you're dealing with these individuals. And that's what individuals face. If you put it out there, I've kind of talked about it with some examples, but I've covered um, the reason why people commit crimes. And one of the reasons that's there is because they have a history of antisocial behavior, and no one has redirected them. And then, you know what else, guys? Uh, the longer that you develop a habit of doing something, the harder it is to break, if you know what I'm talking about. And your personality pattern becomes who your inner self is, that comes out on the outside in your actions uh, and those kinds of things. So many individuals who are inward, antisocial, have values and beliefs that are contrary to um, doing things the traditional way. They want to help themselves by getting over on people and so forth. And then the final thing is who you hang with. Um, once told that if you spend time with individuals who are bad, it's a matter of time before you end up there. The illustration I like to use is I've had people to come to my office, and their mom, I'll use the example, or dad, but most of the time it's the mom, and they would be sitting across from the desk from me when I was practicing, and they would say, well, I really didn't do anything, but I was there with them. I say, well, did you realize what kind of people they were? Yeah, but those are my friends. That's I got to have friends. Well, I asked the question, if I turn the water hose on you or you on your mother, what happens to the other person that I didn't aim the water hose at? And they said, well, the ultimate answer is they got wet. Why did they get wet? Because they were there. You cannot be, well, I shouldn't say this. You can be charged with a crime when you're not there because mistaken ID. But you increase your chances of being involved in a crime, like the young man I know who fell asleep in the back of a car drunk, and his buddies committed a burglary. Well, I was able to prove that he was drunk and unconscious with the amount of alcohol that was found in his system, that he couldn't have been one of those that were involved. And he was in the back seat drunk. But it cost his mom $5,000 um, to start, and I think it was totally about almost 10 grand before I was able to get him off. Excuse me, to keep him from going to jail and or prison. But the point of the matter is there are consequences that you pick up from your peers and friends. Yeah. So who needs friends and peers like that? No one. But if you're caught in it, you don't know that. All right. So the next point, the case plan. So what we do is and this should be familiar to you. Move the offender from prison to community, and it drives case planning. Focus on the big four that we talked about with attention to the mind of that individual and skills that they might need, always changing. That is exactly my point, that if you put some of those things on the clock from 12 at the top, on the way to 3, you're making progress. Get down to 6, you're at the optimal level where you can grow and grow and grow. But as soon as you start to move off of that, you can't go backwards, but can go forward. And you go forward, you can end up back where you started. So uh, you that's the obvious plan, is to provide programs and focus on the big four that we talked about a few minutes ago. Um, Anytime you have any questions or comments, jump in. Uh, let me know. Okay. Next, we deal with effective interventions. What works? What works? What have we discovered from evidence of studying and our research to reducing criminal behavior? And we have learned that if you provide good opportunities for individual, education is a big ticket, skills, second chance jobs, again, provide housing for individuals, and those kinds of things. I'm a big proponent of education because of the fact that it teaches you to utilize what you might already have. Um, I think even vocational, it could be academic or vocational. Um, I know of a friend who he has a barber college, and he conducts classes in jail and prison. He does that here in Illinois. And he can tell you that there are people who have come out, and because of this skill of cutting hair that they obtained while incarcerated, their focus was on being a good barber. And unfortunately, they have to be careful because if there are some people who do want to do that, but then they're not doing so well, they might bring unsavory activity to where you're learning. I had a young man that I know at a barber college who um, he actually goes to my church, and he would cut my hair and my son's hair, and he did real good. But then he found himself hooking up with some of the guys there who weren't doing so well, and consequently, he got kicked out of the college. Guess what? They didn't, because they were slick with theirs. So the point of the matter is that he missed his opportunity to become a licensed barber. He wasn't in prison or jail, but I'm just trying to tell you that there are people who have gone and done well. Uh, I've talked to people who do those kinds of things, electricians. And now, I mean, man, there are so many people with the computer age that can get into working on computers, and become tech people, and utilize their minds to focus on those kind of things. And man, those people can begin to make 6 figures legally. So what it does is reduces criminal behavior, and it's skill based. Responsivity, uh, dealing with the gender of the individual, level of function, and so forth. The ability or capacity of those individuals to comprehend the things that you're trying to get to, and build integrity. You know how I feel about that one. Very important. That's important throughout the school. But the point of the matter is that you have to have integrity to teach integrity. A person who doesn't have integrity can't teach integrity. if you follow what I'm saying. You gotta be able to speak in terms of that. So these are things that intervene and assist in transition from prison to the community. Collaborate with stakeholders. Here are some stakeholders: the family, mentors, peers, um, and as it says quite clearly here, corrections cannot do it alone. It's an effort that work together. Our church has worked with programs where there have been individuals who have come out and they have helped clean up the church. They have done painting and things of that nature. The point of the matter is that there are community organizations of various persuasions that can help individuals. Faith-based community, that's what I just got through talking about. Treatment providers that understand R&R and utilize it in their programming to help individuals to be able to operate successfully and return from being a bad and transfer rather from a bad person to a good person and living a good life. I've seen some of those. Unfortunately, it's not. It takes a lot of work. It does a lot of time and patience. That's why I like ministry because my goal is to help individuals to transfer their lives. And it's not just dealing with the Bible. We deal with the holistic aspects, the needs of people, such as the things that we just talked about a few minutes ago. I use my knowledge as a professional that I've worked my life as their pastor to help individuals and introduce them to individuals that I've interacted with and known throughout my career. Then finally, what are the complications and barriers? We kind of been talking about that, but it just says lack of understanding of the treatment or interventions as critical to security. Not being able to not have the capacity mentally to understand, but because of you have to, how should I say, convince them that it is a better way of life. Um, they won't always look at the success stories of your life. Like I share my story to individuals who are incarcerated that I represented and told them that I defended murderers, even though I lost my parents to murdering. But I worked with them to see the cause of it and see what I could do to get them from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. I didn't say 12 to 6, but that's what I was really doing was getting them to go in a 180 in terms of their life. But what I was getting ready to say is um, you should not be surprised if you run across individuals who, no matter how well they see what you're doing, they don't want to go through the steps you went through. I went through a lot of education and work, as that's what you guys are doing to become what you are. Yet there are people waiting to um, hurt you in that, such as you go have you a nice car, and they don't want to work to get a car. They don't want to work to get themselves in position to do it. They feel it's easier to just take yours, and that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So how do you implement this change? Uh, Philosophically, you deal with um, um, individuals as prison employees. Uh, Prison employees, you gotta understand that your role is not to babysit, but to deal with the psychology of individuals. That's why more educated individuals are becoming correction officers. Before it used to be just high school, but now it's moving up to even bachelor's. And being able to provide uh, professional work, not that you become their caseworker, but that is part and parcel of the tools that you have to work with as a correction officer. Who does this work? I already told you, correction officers, protectional officers, or that's the same thing, case managers, and POs, parole officers, in this case, probation officers in the case of jails. I've already said this before, that you cannot become a probation officer, and you definitely cannot become a parole officer without a bachelor's degree in most jurisdictions. And because of the reason they want you to have a more professional approach to dealing with individuals, and not just to be a babysitter or a sitter to while they are under the years of probation or parole, so that when they do complete it, they complete it in a fashion that they have changed their lives and demonstrated a change in their lives. Changes in staff training and expectations, constantly getting continuing education, uh, better funding so that you can hire better, good people. Of course, it's hard to keep good people uh, without good salaries, because people have to survive. People have to take care of their families or take care of themselves. Forming relationships with community partners is what I had talked about earlier, working with organizations, churches, faith-based community, other community type organizations that will help people. Lack of community programming is a problem, um, or service available upon release, especially as they say in rural communities, because you're just out there. There's everything is far away, and you're pretty much on your own out there, and you stay in the same mode and you don't change. So, and that's it. Any questions? Any questions? Okay. All right. So now, as we're almost at time, you can go yourself over the knowledge check, but I'm just going to give you a preview of it. So, um, a management principle holding that a supervisor can effectively oversee only a limited number of subordinates. What is that? Is it A, B, or C? Okay, the consensus is A. Let's see if you're right. That's right. The span of control. Um, and it's kind of pretty clear in what they were describing. When you get too many, it's out of control. Okay. It's like we try to tell as instructors. When we have smaller classes, um, it's easier to help students, and that's primarily dealing with residential. But we have the same thing online, and but I'm one of these people because I have that 24/7 communication open to my students. It's a little different. A lot of my colleagues say, "Man, it wouldn't be me." An organizational position in order of authority, with each receiving orders from immediately above and issuing orders to the ones immediately. That's an easy one. You know it's not the first one, so which one is it? Yeah, yeah, everybody know that's a chain of command. Yeah. Okay, so you anyway, you go through each of these and you deal with that. Any questions about week 5 before we conclude? Well, you know what? I'm going to give you a key phrase or a key word for, let's leave for a minute, stop sharing, and I'm going to give it to you because some people might not want to stay for the um, 10 minutes or so, week 6, but I do advise it. Key phrase. What is it that we're dealing with here? What's a good one? Any suggestions? That's a good one. Any others? Any others? Okay. I had another one in mind, but I like that one, sensible revocation. So we're going to give you that one. I don't think we've used that one before. Sensible revocation. Give me that, and you get your points for week number 5, which is the final week for points. Okay. So now let's go and let's quickly go over the module 6. That was module 5. The future of corrections. That's you all. So you have actually uh, a discussion post, 2 discussion posts, which is pretty easy to do. Um, because it would be you guys that are providing information to each other. You're going to post your proposal from module 5. Remember your proposal that you did in module 5, the one that we just went over for your written assignment. You remember that? You didn't forget that already, did you? Anyway, that's what you got to use. So you're going to be posting your proposal. It's so easy. Posting your proposal for Module 5, release planning, as your initial post. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. You don't have to say anything at all. All right. And then in reply post, it says copy and paste. That's one of the few times an assignment we say copy and paste. Your Module 5 written assignment. Okay. In your response post, review a proposal to evaluate the criterion, recommendations, and alignment. 2 recommendations, why they would be impactful, and examples for each. Alignment, recommendations to RNR, TPC, and other identified principles corrections. Now, determine the level of achievement for each. Explain how the criterion is placed at the level of achievement. Provide at least one suggestion to improve the criterion. Now, remember, your reply post is going to be providing your peers with feedback on their proposal. So you can pick more than one if you want, but at least pick one and provide details. So just think about what you're really doing. You're doing one discussion post because you're just copying and pasting the initial, and then in reply, you're going to analyze and critique the other ones using these issues. Is that pretty clear? Everybody got that? Okay. So that's it for that. And you know that will be due the 9th. Okay. And then the last thing is the quiz. Okay. And same parameters that we've had before. And you're going to study the evidence-based practices and implementation science and deal with corrections today and these things. And then vocabulary review, which I highly recommend doing. If you don't do the vocabulary review before you do the quiz, you probably won't do too well, because little clue that I think I've said this before, some people went over their heads, is that the information that I provide to you, because I will provide you with the PowerPoints and things like that. I will provide that by the end of this week. It's for the assignment for Tuesday of next week to be done. But you want to have the vocabulary down, because that helps you with the quiz that you have. So that's it. Um, any questions about week 6? Okay. All right. Again, you can always reach out to me, and please don't. I already had one person to do it. They hadn't done any assignments from week 1, 2, and 3, and then they want to know if I could give them a extension or incomplete, and I told them I can't do that. Sorry. Then they should have worked that out with their advisor before that. Um, but I haven't had any in a while, but I did remember my all-time memory of a student who didn't do any work from weeks 1 to 5. And then they wanted to know if I could give them an extension. And I said, the extension is only going to be a week. So you're going to do 5 weeks work in in a week? Not. And that's not good. That's not good. That's remember, the goal is you're trying to learn information to be a good professional. And I would say that I think that every one of you here today would have to agree with me saying, oh, that's not productive at all. Would you agree? Everybody agree that that's not productive? Yeah. Yeah, I think that, you can try to rationalize all night and all day, but it's still not going to happen. So, all right, guys, I'm going to say good night to you. I hope I see many of you down the road, because this is a course. Next term, I'm teaching constitutional law, and I don't remember the other topic. I don't know if it's drugs and crime. I think it's drugs and crime. Anybody gonna have that you know right now are gonna be having me next term starting Wednesday? Any of you know? Okay, Andrew, you've had me before though in some other classes already. And I'm noticing now that more people are taking this course that have taken other courses already and coming back. It used to be that you took this early on. People usually take J115 or Introduction to Corrections along with drugs and crime, or either Introduction to Criminal Law after that. So I was supposed to teach Introduction to Criminal Law, and I still could end up doing it, but I don't think so. So I do know drugs and crime next term. Oh, okay. And they don't tell you it's me teaching it, do they? Do you know who's teaching it? Yeah, it could be me. I'm thinking that's the other course. they keep changing it depending upon what's in there. I do know constitutional law is supposed to be one of them, but I don't think that's going to happen because I'm teaching that right now. But then that's usually a pretty big class. The biggest class that I had this term was that one. So, um, but anyway, we shall see. We shall see. I can tell you this: uh, if you're going to be around in the program, you're going to run across me again somewhere somehow. And I had a person that told me that they missed me because they had another instructor who was a colleague of mine who has a different style of teaching, and they didn't like it. So they said, could they transfer it to my class? And I told them, I said, that's not on me. I'm sorry. Some people don't miss the water till the well runs dry. But anyway, good night, guys. I can't say enjoy your break because there is no break. 11:59 p.m. Uh, the classes for T1 end, and then 1 second later, the classes start for term 2. So I have to reserve that break time for 5.5 more weeks after that. So, all right, it's been a pleasure having each of you in my class. I hope that you've learned some things. I try to explain to my students that if you didn't do too well, um, it's because you didn't follow the rubric. I think I started talking about that from the day when I was like telling Dorothy to stay on the yellow brick road. But it's very important that you do that. And then if you don't understand something, I'm very accessible, as some of you already know that I have talked to or on the phone. So, all right, have a good evening. Stay safe. You submitted the assignment for Module 1. Okay, I don't know when you submitted it, and I'm not going to talk to you about that in class. Oh, last week? Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's that's um that's within the week. Okay, hold on a second. You're going to do this.